Hi, my name is Alison, and I'm the founder of HoneyBadgerRadio. I'm here in front of you today to announce that Dankula and Sargon will be attending the International Conference on Men's Issues. The 2019 ICMI will be just a hop, skip, and a jump from Chicago's O'Hare Airport on August 16th, 17th, and 18th. I'd like to be the first to welcome Sargon and Dankula to the very bottom of the oubliette.
You don't even know what an oubliette is.
Do you?
Yes, it's a place you put people to forget about them.
When I decided to ask Karen to approach Dankula to come to ICMI 2019, after I had watched his most recent video on dealing with his legal issues, I have to say, having dealt with my own legal case, I felt a lot of sympathy for what he was going through, both fighting an unconscionable law and being cast as only after money for doing so, which is ridiculous. No one launches a lawsuit in a Commonwealth country for money. We're not Americans. We don't get big payouts. We're lucky, very lucky, if we don't get a punch to the chops and a boot up our ass for our troubles. After all, law isn't for protecting citizens, it's for protecting corporations and government from citizens. Funny how that works. Sargon spent an afternoon with the Badger Gang at VidCon in 2017, and he even gave me a compliment on one of my videos. I'm quite honored that he watches them. We may not see eye to eye politically all the time, but I always find Sargon generous and gracious with the time that he has. And I'm glad he's agreed to be our Culture War keynote speaker. Some may ask, why men's issues and culture war? What do they have to do with each other? Well, let me answer your question, person I just made up. Men's rights activists, men's issues advocates, we were the first into the oubliette, the deep, dark hole you put people when you don't want to listen to them nag you anymore. The oubliette then eventually expanded and ended up holding atheists who rejected atheism plus, Gamergate proponents, geek con goers, the Republican Party. The list is sort of endless at this point. Anyway, we were first, and there was a reason for it. So let's go back in history. Charles Fourier, the French philosopher, originally coined feminism to mean judging society by how well it benefits women, and women alone. It was radical at the time to propose something other than God's will as the moral access for society, so benefiting God in the eternal battle between Satan and God. In fact, Fourier's feminism likely would have been heresy in any era prior to the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, and our move from existing within environments defined by an enigmatic God and his mysterious will to artificial environments defined more by material science. But benefiting women as the new central moral access took off like Cracker Jacks. Who knew? Who knew that the world would rush to embrace the idea that the very best thing in the world is to protect and provide for women? Today, it's more heretical to say, I want to benefit God than I want to benefit women. And just try saying, I want to benefit men. Just try it, try it, try it. It introduces a problem, though. Once you've benefited women in one way, you stop having anything to do, and you just sort of hang out at the street corner being bored and listening to very loud music. So new ways of benefiting women have to be constantly developed, which requires new things for women to be victims of. More and more things. Bigger and bigger things. Larger and larger things, until you're saying women are victims of all of society. After all society is the biggest man-made thing in the world. There's nothing bigger than that. And so a society that embraces saving women as its moral axis, as its moral center, as the benefit that we all aspire to, starts to believe that it is also a society that just hates them and wants to see them suffer. Fundamentalists see sin everywhere. Fundamentalists who believe benefiting women is the ultimate good see society benefiting men unfairly everywhere. Seeing women as victims of society that privileges their protection, provision, and care requires a little mental agility. First of all, you have to remove all evidence of men's victimhood. And then you have to buttress your claims of women being victims of society by associating women with people who can honestly say they are victims of society. That is, genuinely marginalized groups. Of course, if you ever actually fix how they're being marginalized, that would defeat the purpose of using them to bolster women's claims of victimhood. So you sort of avoid actually addressing the problems which would remove that marginalization. But that's neither here nor there. That's not the point. Now, all of this is crazy, right? Absolute social justice lunacy. Wrong. The intersectional feminist response, namely the belief that society hates women, is not crazy. It's perfectly rational when you take a really big step back. Remember when I said Charles Fourier's feminist formulation would have been heresy in any other time? We no longer have a lay belief in God as the central moral axis in our society. We no longer have a lay belief in God at all. We don't really believe in God, so we can't really believe in benefiting God. It was the waning of this belief system that both allowed Fourier to formulate feminism and drew feminism in as a replacement. We've never had a language, much less a society, without some kind of shared system of benefit. We have a shared language because we trust each other enough. And we trust each other enough because we all agree who should be benefited at the end of the day. We all agree we're working towards that group's benefit. The loss of a supernatural axis, the first time in history that we've lost such a thing, is an existential crisis that touches all of us. And regardless of our annoyance with Fourier and his crazy heirs, they actually made a decision. They saw a crack in the dam, and they grabbed men up and they shoved men into it. Whether it's God or women, we can all agree benefiting them is where it's at. And because we can all agree who to benefit, we can all agree to get along with each other, enough to share a lot of things. A language, institutions, a fiat currency that just works because it just works. Because we all trust each other. Anyone who has taken charge of anything knows. A bad decision is most times significantly better than no decision, which is more than what we've gotten from conservatives and those who decry postmodernism. Sorry, guys. Got to take you to task a little bit. We can't go back to believing in God the way that we did. First of all, no one wants to. Second of all, no one wants to. Third of all, that's like saying, well, if you don't like puberty, go back to being 8. We're here now. We've got to deal with it. So should we shut up and just let Fourier's heirs, the intersectionals, get on with things? My 8-ball says no. When we pursue a program of eradicating all unfair benefits society gives men over women, in a society that hates giving men any benefit at all, most specifically and most especially the benefit of the doubt, you run into a very big problem. Men don't get unfair benefits, so we're constantly fixing a problem that doesn't exist and breaking society to do so. Stockholm's so-called gender-neutral or gender-equal snow removal plan that privileged women's routes for snow removal over so-called men's routes and plunged the entire city into chaos during a record snowfall, they found that so-called men's routes were actually maintenance routes. And the fact that the snow was removed from them first had nothing to do with the fact that mostly men used them, but the fact that mostly maintenance workers used them, maintenance workers responsible for the effective running of the city. And it just so happens that while women benefit from society, they are the least likely to be responsible for its maintenance. Under the assumption that our society grants men unfair benefits, we are restructuring everything so that we remove the concessions granted to men, not because they're men, but because they do the work of keeping everything running. Meaning eventually nothing will be running. We've seen the rise of what can only be described as a plague of locusts, the rise of professional grievance pirates that target institutions, organizations, subcultures, and use the idea that somehow those places are secretly benefiting men, secretly sinning, or, benefiting white men if they need a little extra firepower, to strong-arm their way through the gates and set themselves up as moral arbiters who can fix things so that they benefit women instead. Because God knows, that's where it's at. But really, they only end up distributing the spoils to their friends and setting up endless circular firing squads and inquisitions that turn formerly prosperous little communities and efficient little organizations and great little art houses into volcanic hellscapes, belching out a poisonous black fog of social misery. Carl Jung says that until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. In Jungian philosophy, this is called the shadow self. It's the parts of ourselves that we do not want to see and hide from, the parts of our conscious egos that they don't identify with. In terms of our society, it's whatever's at the bottom of the ideological oubliette. We, as a society, are in the grip of being directed by unconscious forces, shadow forces that are compelling us to destroy ourselves and the world we've created. They're compelling us to destructive gynocentrism or nihilism. And it will be called fate when it happens, when the destruction happens, even though it's utterly preventable. Both Sargon and Dankula have come face to face with this mindless, destructive shadow, incapable of recognizing or responding to the reality before it. It sees a joke about Nazis as promoting Nazism. It sees mocking white nationalists as supporting white nationalism. It sees a man abused by a woman as a woman abused by a man. Under Dankula's video are comments, the original video with the pug, are comments by Jewish people who are astounded that his video was considered anti-Semitism. And they're right, it's not. In the video, Dankula explicitly says he wants to juxtapose an adorable pug with the most horrible thing he can think of. He's explicitly calling Nazism horrible. This isn't about, all of this isn't about ending anti-Semitism. It's about using anti-Semitism, racism, homophobia, sexism to establish moral hegemony over society. In that sense, the people who use this in this way are the same as Nazis. And what a surprise. I mean, how better to avoid being accused of what you are than to preemptively accuse everyone else of being it. And when I say that this should chill everyone to the bone, because I am saying this should chill everyone to the bone, it's because the moment they are able to establish their moral hegemon over society, they no longer need to advocate for minority issues or women's issues, and they won't. Job's done. Tools used. Put it aside. Enjoy your power. So why haven't we fixed this? We've mocked the insanity of intersectionals for years, and men's rights activists have been calling out the problem they are creating for even longer. Normal people, like all people throughout human history, want to feel like they share an overall moral belief system with those around them. It's important to sacrifice for the people and Senate of Rome so that God can win the war against Satan. For Uncle Sam, Mom, and Uncle and Apple Pie. I was about to say Uncle Pie. I really shouldn't juxtapose Uncle with Apple. Let me do that again. It's important to sacrifice for the people in Senate of Rome so that God can win the war against Satan. For Uncle Sam, Mom, and Apple Pie, right? We all agree racism is bad and sexism should be ended. Further, most men do not want to face their shadow, all of the things that they're afraid of in themselves, most centrally their vulnerabilities. Because most men cope with the... I'm not going to say this word right. Vagaries of life by making themselves useful, and you are never less useful than when you have weaknesses. Like not being able to say the word vagaries. And women prefer to hide too and stay safe, because a woman is never more vulnerable than when she takes off her armor of victimhood, and it is armor. Men and women prefer the stilted madness of intersectionality because it appeals to their ego, kicking their can of shadows down the road till there's no road left. Men's rights activists, we aren't defined by an ideology really, but by just being a bunch of people who stumbled upon facts about reality that didn't support men feeling useful and women feeling vulnerable. And when the powers that be said those facts are inconvenient, so they're lies, we said no, they're still facts. And into the oubliette we went. But to be honest, it's not that bad at the bottom of the oubliette. For starters, we don't have to deal with what I call the misery machine, the perpetual need to locate scapegoats in order to ritually project your shadow self onto them and sacrifice them. We're able to have fun again, build again, make friends again, have families again. The great irony of the oubliette is this. Every single civilization has always thrown its greatest treasure into the oubliette. And what's our treasure? Well, I guess you'll have to come out to Chicago to find out. August 16th, 17th, and 18th. A link here to sign up for more information for our emailing list. And also here for tickets. We're planning speeches, Q&A sessions, panels, workshops, a catered dinner, evening games, and screening events for socializing, getting all your socializing needs out, and our yearly Badger meetup at the venue on Sunday after the conference is officially over. As always, the Badger meetup will be free for all comers, attendees. So welcome, Sargon and Dankula, to the bottom of the oubliette. Pull up a chair if you like. The books are top-notch, very subversive. Bar is to the right. Dance floor is to the left. Game room is in the back. Don't mind the eccentrics. They're mostly harmless. And let's all get back to the hard work of having fun. See you there.
新しい朝が来た希望の朝だ喜びに胸を開け大空仰げラジオの声に
Oh, you stuck around. Well, I better make it worth your while. The treasure that I talked about that was thrown by society into the oubliette, it's the context in which this...
I'm afraid of that hat. I want the whole fucking thing!
Makes sense. The context was the first thing to be thrown into the first oubliette way back when. And when you understand how it's sane, you understand how to end the insanity of it. So see you in Chicago. It makes sense.